In this tutorial, we're going to create a classic survey using the SurveySparrow app. In a previous tutorial, we created one for the chat survey in SurveySparrow, and this one's for the classic survey, which allows you some more options. We're going to go through all those in this tutorial. And before we do that, I just wanted to point out that very recently, a few weeks ago, SurveySparrow was ranked #1 fastest growing product on G2 Crowd. And they have a bunch of other flair, a bunch of other notable achievements on G2 Crowd that you can see on this page right here. There's High Performer for Spring 2020, Small Business Leader Spring 2020, Momentum Leader Spring 2020, and you can see them all on this page. And the great thing about SurveySparrow is they're a top tier product and they offer you a free plan so you can get started. And if you like it, you can then upgrade to a paid plan later on or to stick to the free plan. My name is Bjorn Allpass from WP Learning Lab, where we help you get better at WordPress and earn more for yourself, for your customers, and for your business. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to click subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss any future videos. Now let's get back to SurveySparrow. So let's close this G2 Crowd page. I've linked to this in the description down below if you want to check it out. If you want to follow along, click on the link in the description down below. It'll take you to this website, SurveySparrow.com. Go to the pricing page, and on the pricing page, you will see the paid options at the top, and then you will see the free option down at the bottom here. You can always upgrade to a paid option later if you find it's a good fit for your business. You can also stick with the free plan if you find the free plan is sufficient. To sign up, just click on the green button here. Yours may say buy now or sign up. Mine currently says upgrade because I have an account. Even though I have a higher account than free, it says upgrade. Probably should say downgrade, but that's all right. Click on there, sign up. Once you're signed up, click on login, and then you'll be greeted with a dashboard that looks something like this. Yours will probably have no entries. I have a few entries from some tutorials I've done. The most recent tutorial was for this one right here, a chat survey about WordPress. And we've got a lot of responses on that because it's a live survey. It's still live right now. And if you watch that tutorial, you can fill out this survey and see how it works. There's a link to that tutorial in the card up above and the description down below. So check that out if you want to. Today, we're going to create a classic survey, which provides a few more options compared to the chat survey. And we're going to go over those as we build the survey out. To start with a new survey, click on New Survey. Here we have the options that we can choose. We're going to stick with Classic. We're going to make another tutorial on the MPS survey later on. So if Classic is not selected, make sure you click on it here and you'll see an example of it right here. And you can choose Start Blank or Browse Templates. I'm going to browse templates. There are a lot of options. You don't have to start from scratch if you don't want to. A lot of these have great graphics. So if you have, or if you find a template in here that has the graphics you need for your business, you don't have to do as much work. Because if you have a restaurant website, this might be just perfect for you right here. Or if you have, I don't know, a kid's brand, maybe. This looks like entertaining for kids. It's only the first slide, so it might not be as entertaining throughout the survey, but at least the first slide is good. And if you find any survey templates that you like, just click on them, and you can work through the survey to see if it's actually one you like. This one's for a fictitious company called GrowthBee. Could you please spare a moment to answer a few questions? We promise it won't take long. Sure thing. Let's click on that, and here we can answer our questions. What best describes your role? Let's go with CEO and founder. Oh, it's nice to meet you. Next. How did you first discover SurveySparrow? Other. Email. Next. Interesting. Next. Have you paid to use SurveySparrow? Yes or no? Since you're making a free account, you choose no. If you have a paid account, you choose yes, obviously. And what you've noticed probably by now is this answer is different. If we go back one, we see all these other answers are multiple choice where you click on text inside of a box, which you can all design and customize. Here we have icons and text in a box. And you can also press the keys. So if someone wants to not use the mouse but use the keyboard, they can just type a key. So if I typed Y, it would choose yes. Here we have more icons. And how would you feel if you could no longer use it? I'd be very disappointed. It's a great product. Well, that's all we ever wanted. Could you tell us what's your favorite part? We want to keep that smile on. My favorite part is gathering feedback from my audience. That's my favorite. Next. By this point, you get the idea. I'm just going to quickly fast forward through each one by not filling out legit responses. I'm just going to go faster to see the end screen. Here we can reorganize. This is a different question option. We can reorganize the answers by dragging and dropping. Another text-based answer, a scale answer, scale response. You just made our day. Would you recommend it? Sure. It's brilliant. Eventually, we're going to get to the thank you page. Won't take too long. There we go. Submit and the thank you page. And that is the entire survey. And if we like that survey, we can go ahead and choose template. If we don't like it, we can go back to template to pick a different one, and we can always start from scratch if we want to. Let's just click on this X and start from scratch. Build a new survey, start from blank, make sure we're on classic, start from blank. And I'm going to make this the classic demo survey. We can choose a folder if we have lots of surveys. I'm going to keep mine in general, then click on next. And here is where we actually build out the survey. Now, the thing I mentioned earlier about how Classic has a few things that are different, we'll get to those as we're building the survey, but I just want to quickly tell you what they are. One is variables, and two is expressions. The variables can be used to fill data in based on data in the URL, up here in the URL string. So you could have an autoresponder, say MailChimp, put information into the URL, which the survey can then pull out and make it part of the survey questions, which is pretty awesome. And I have a tutorial showing pretty much that whole process right up there in the card up above, which shows you how to use MailChimp to add data to a web page. And it's pretty much the exact same process to get data showing up in your survey. So if you want to check that out up there in the card or the description down below. I'll put the link down there as well. And the expressions are calculations, essentially. They can be simple or complex. The calculations would use scoring that you apply to certain questions in the survey. You don't have to apply scoring to every question. You can if you want to, or you can just apply the scoring to some questions and just use those ones in your calculations. To add your first question, click on the plus icon beside the text, add your first question. Pretty self-explanatory. Here we have our question types. There's a lot of types. We're going to either go through these in detail or mention these as we go through this tutorial. But the first thing we want to add is a welcome page. At least I think you do. I'm going to add a welcome page first. And here we have our text that says, welcome. Welcome to my survey. You are awesome. We can choose images from Unsplash. These are royalty-free images. That is a beautiful tree right there. And we can add those to our survey or to the welcome page. We can upload them from our own computer, or we can use GIFs from Giphy. And I feel like I should know what this is. Not the Macho Man Randy Savage. I'm gonna put him in there. And there we have an animated GIF on our survey. Makes it much more interactive, I think. And in this line here is where we add our question. So we say, welcome to my survey, you're awesome. But what does that mean? Not much. We want you to actually fill out our survey. So here we have the call to action to fill out that survey. And the sample they give is got a moment to share some feedback. I'm happy with that. So I'm going to put that right there. Or how about this? With the Macho Man. Oh, that's dumb. Let's just keep it with this. And then for the button text, we have this right here. I'm going to change this to sure thing. And now that is done. That is our first page done, the welcome page. You see in the top right here, we can also add emojis. So we click where we want them. And let's put a thumbs up right there. And this $sign means variables, which means we can add variables to our survey. So we could ask, or at the very end of this, have the person's name right here. So by clicking on this variable, we can choose contact name. Better yet, I'm going to erase that. I'm going to choose contact first name. Now, where on earth does that come from? Well, it turns out SurveySparrow is also a basic CRM, which means if you collect data from the people who fill out your forms, you can use that data in the next survey you send them. If you go to your questions, and if you have an email field and a name field, and you assign them as such, those will be added to a contact records. To find the contact records, I'll show you them right now. First, I'll refresh to close this question menu. We have a save button at the top right. Normally it's auto-saved. As you build surveys, it'll be auto-saved, but I want to save it right now just in case there's something I don't want to lose. So click on saved if you need to. If we go back to the main area by clicking the little house, go to contacts in the top right, this will show a list of people who've submitted their email addresses. If you don't have surveys where you ask for emails, you won't have contacts in here. But for example, if we sent a survey to this person, Bjorn, that's me, this first name would be entered in that survey, which is pretty awesome. And if you don't have a list of contacts in here, but you want some, you can also import them. You can have them listed in CSV, XLS, or XLX, which are Excel files. And you can even connect to services like Gmail, HubSpot, etc., and import. So you can import the contacts into here, then send them a survey, and have the variables auto-filled based on data inside of this contact area. There's a different part of the variables section, which is what I mentioned earlier, where you pull data from the URL. I'll show you that as well in just a minute. Since we're here, I just want to quickly show you, you can have different lists. So I created a list called Early Risers. There's just me in there. And this is people who like to get up early in the morning, quick description of the list. So you can segment your list based on whatever you decide, and you can send surveys to specific lists if you want to. You can also manage properties. These are the things that you collect or are able to collect from the people who fill out your surveys. So right now it's set to name, email, phone, mobile, and job title. If you wanted to collect more information, just click on Add Property. Maybe you want to choose country. This is the label that will be seen on the front end or wherever it is you use it. This will be used for the variables, the country name, the type. Just going to make this a single line text. Description, where are you from? I'm going to assign it to a group. Click on Save. And now we have another property that we can have people fill out and we can collect data on. We go back to contacts. And you might be wondering, if we're collecting all this data, are we GDPR compliant? Yes, we are. Let's go back to the SurveySparrow homepage just for a second. And we're jumping around a lot, or go back to the survey in just a minute. We scroll down the homepage. We see somewhere, there we go, GDPR. Want to learn more about GDPR compliance in SurveySparrow? Go to this page. I'll link to it in the description down below as well. It's a pretty important page, and you can read all about their compliance and how to make sure that you are compliant when using SurveySparrow and collecting this data about people who are filling out your surveys. So in the contacts, we covered manage lists, manage properties, imports. You can also export them. We can add people to lists, so we just check the box. We can add them to a list we've created. We only have one list currently, and this person's already in there. So there's not much to do there, but that's how you add them to a list. You can also delete them, check the box again, delete, and you can change the columns that display. The columns will be the properties. So we have to have name and email, but then we can selectively have phone, mobile, job title, or country, which you recognize as properties, phone, mobile, job title, country. So then you can organize your data based on those items. Click on the pencil beside any contact, and you can fill in information manually if you want to. So that's the contacts. It's a very powerful feature. Let's go back to our survey, the classic demo survey. There's Macho Man. So that's how we get our first name in here. And if we wanted to have other variables, click on the variables, we scroll down, we can choose any of the ones that we have here. These are the ones, of course, that are the properties. To add data from the URL, like I mentioned, we have to add different variables in this little globe icon here. We'll get to that later on. Let's go back to these survey questions finally. So our first page is done. Let's add another question. Let's add an opinion scale. Most of these questions are pretty self-explanatory just by the titles, but if you don't know what they are, you can always click on it, open it up, and you see, oh, it's a rating scale from 0 to 10. If you don't like it, click on the trash can to delete it. Delete that question. Let's add our first question, a different one, multiple choice, or choose a different one, and you can go through and see what they all are and see which one you need in that position. I'm going to go back to opinion scale, and since you have the Macho Man on the front, I'm going to add a question related to the Macho Man. It's going to be on a scale of 1 to 10. How real do you think WWE is? I think it's called WWE. The wrestling used to be WWF when I was a kid. Now it's WWE, I think. I don't watch it anymore, so I really don't know. On a scale of 1 to 10, how real do you think it is? And people can choose their answer. And in this case, less likely and most likely doesn't apply, so we can change those labels. So I'm going to say not real at all and really real. And they can choose which one they prefer. We can also change the number of steps. So if you wanted to have this just be a scale of 1 to 7, let's change the question on a scale of 1 to 7. How real do you think it is? They can choose which one they want. You can also have the scale start at 1. Might not make sense. In your case, start at 0. In my case, it does, because 0 is no realism. But if you want to start at 1 and not 0, just click on this little toggle, and it'll take that 0 away. And so I guess technically, we have 8 steps. And change this to 0. On a scale of 0 to 7. That makes more sense because that is what we have, a 0. We'd also have logic. The display logic allows us to display this question based on certain conditions. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here. So we can display based on certain conditions. If we, for example, have a contact whose job title is or contains CEO, then this question would display. Or, let's see, does not contain CEO. So as long as it doesn't contain CEO, this question would display. So you can display questions based on data about your contacts that you have, and you can also display questions based on the channel they came from. For example, email, URL, embed, Google Share, Facebook, social, SMS, QR codes, mobile, email embeds. All those different channels can be used to display certain questions. So you can get pretty creative in your logic. You also have the ability to use skip logic, which means you can skip over this question. It wouldn't make sense for the very first question to be skippable, but for example, if they answered of a 0 on this question, you can have them skip to a question that asks, why do you think it's fake? Or if they choose 7, really real, and then you could say, yeah, we think it's real too. Why do you think it's so real? So you can skip to different questions based on their answer on previous questions. You can do that with the skip logic. Those are available in pretty much every question type that you find on the left-hand side here. And we're almost done looking at this question type. We're going to go with the next ones faster because we've covered a lot of the important things that's applied to a lot of them, like logic and different option types and things. But I also want to point out that you can make questions required by checking this box. You can add a description for your question in case the question doesn't make a lot of sense, or if you find people are filling it out then emailing you and saying, I don't understand what that question meant. You can add a description here to further explain the question. You can add emojis, variables like we did before. Click the 3 dots, you get images and video, and those are also available for most question types. So let's add another question. Add new, multiple choice. Here we add multiple choices. We can add here, what is the best color for a wrestling ring? Blue, red. I was pressing tab to make more choices. Green, purple. And those are our choices. You can then pipe an answer if you want to, if it makes sense, from a previous question. So you can use a previous question to add the answer information to this question if you want to using pipe answer. And you can also change the question type by clicking this little down arrow right here. So anytime you don't like the multiple choice question in this position, you can change it to a different question type. You can randomize the order of the answers. So instead of having blue at the top every time, blue will be moved around. This helps you with bias. People are more biased to click the very first answer, especially when they're in a rush. So this will help randomize it. People will still be clicking the first answer, but at least it'll be randomized, and it won't skew your data based or towards one option when they're just in a hurry and not paying attention. You can also allow them to choose a none of the above option. You can have the questions stacked. This is for mobile readiness. Every survey question, every survey, every aspect is mobile responsive, and they code for mobile first because they feel mobile is important, which it is, and so everything is mobile friendly. These questions will appear like this in a horizontal row as long as it suits the screen. A large tablet would probably be horizontal, but a small tablet and a phone would be stacked. It would look like this. So that would change based on the device type, or you can force it to stacked right now and have it stacked all the time if you want by clicking on stacked. You can allow multiple answers to be chosen, which allows you to add an all the above option if you want to. It also allows you to limit the number of answers you can give. You can have allow other option. So this allows them to type in an answer. You can have this required, and we can add a specific score. Based on their answer, we could give scores, and that can be used in the expressions I mentioned earlier to make calculations. That's how we do that, add the scores. We also have logic, same logic option we had before, and bulk choices, which allows you to copy and paste the choices for your multiple choice in here, and it will create these selections for you if you don't want to type them out. Next question type, rating. Pretty similar to the scale. You have a question, you have a star rating. You can change the icons. Pretty slick. You can change the logic. We have the emojis and variables and images and video just like we always do. So that's the star rating. We have the text input, which is used to input text. We can use single line or multiple line. We have logic, same logic as before. And I'm just going to delete these two because we're going to have a functioning survey. We're going to do the survey later at the end. We have a really short one, but we're going to do a survey to show you how it all works. We can add an email field. And if they enter the email address, this will add them as a contact inside your SurveySparrow account. We can add a section, which allows you to group questions. And that's all it does, just adds a section. Also, whenever you're hovering over these, it gives you information on the right-hand side about what they actually do. We can choose picture choices. So we saw earlier the questions with large boxes with the image in them. I call them icons, but they're actually pictures. So you can add the pictures right in here. You can use the images from Unsplash again, upload, or GIFs like we saw before. We can fit the images to the right size by checking this option here. We can have a none of the above option, randomized, multiple answers, allow other option. We've seen all this before. You can allow scores and logic and pipe answers to bring in the answer from previous questions. We can also add yes or no, which is up or down, check or X, and all the same options as other questions as well. We can choose or have a number field. This allows people to add a number. You can have a minimum value and a maximum value depending on what number ranges you're asking for, and they will enter a number here. And I'm going to clean this up again. Let's quickly delete these ones we're not going to use. Keep forgetting to do this step. And we can add a message. This allows you to add a message in between questions. Like, wow, that's great. We're going to keep this one in here because after they answer what's the best color for a wrestling ring, it's going to say, wow, that's great. And we can add a description for this if we want to or not. And we have our logic options like other questions as well. Let's go to add new again. We can have an upload question where they can upload things like images, docs, or videos. When you hover over these, it shows you what the allowed file types are, and they will be uploaded, if they upload them, to a max size of 10 megabytes. And we can have a matrix. You can have a matrix of multiple columns and multiple rows. They can choose specific answers for specific columns. Usually when you do these in a survey, you would have one answer per row, but you can change that if you want to. You can change it from single answer to multiple answers. So you could have 2 answers in a row. Now the check boxes, we have 2 in a row, or go back to single, you can just have 1 in a row. It's a radio button, just changes. This is one answer for everything. Multiple answer, you can have multiple answers across different rows. We change it back to single answer, and then we can just have one answer, like a radio button, and we can also have text input. So they can add text, they can write text right in here if they need to. And we can fit answers to content or fit answers to screen. And the second one may be better for mobile responsiveness depending on the size of the text inputs. And then we can add rank order. We saw this in the survey question or survey demo. You could have in here, what are the best concession foods? We could have hot dogs and hamburgers, popcorn, and they can rank these based on what they feel the best answer is. And we can also add a contact form. This allows us to collect information about our survey respondents, and this will be filled in to our contacts area that we saw earlier. We can also stack the fields vertically or horizontally. This, of course, will default to vertically if it's on a mobile device. You can choose horizontally if you want it to look like this on, say, a desktop or a large tablet, but then it will automatically default back to vertically when it's on a mobile device. Let's go to add new. We can add a date picker. So you could say what or ask what day is your birthday. They could fill that in here. And we have drop-down abilities. So we can add drop-down questions if we want. This is a little different than the other questions because we don't actually fill in the options here. We fill them in down below. So we could say today, tomorrow, last year. And the question could be, what is the best time to plant an oak tree? And then they can choose an answer based on what they feel the right answer is. And we have all the options we saw before. This is another scoring question. Not every question is a scoring question, but this one is. We can score the answer by clicking that checkbox there, or by clicking this toggle, add a score, and we can use that in our expressions later on. In fact, we will do that. Let's just add a 1, 2, and a 3 for that answer. And let's quickly pop back into our ring color here. Let's make this a scoring question as well. Let's just make this 1, 2, 3, 4. And none of the above. Let's go -2. Other, let's keep that at 0. All right, new question. The constant sum is the next one. This is a specific type of question where the total has to equal a specific number at all times. So if you were to ask something like, how do you spend your day? The day is 24 hours. So the sum will always be 24. You can have your list of activities here and they can choose what they do throughout the day. So our options could be something like walk the dog, play with the kids, work, exercise, and sleep. These are pretty much all the activities I do in a day. Besides going to the bathroom and eating, this is pretty much all I do, especially now since we're all quarantined at the moment, and exercise is pretty lacking. But this allows us to have a list where people can choose how they spend their day, or whatever else makes sense for your survey and your business. You could ask specific questions that people can arrange answers, but their answers are never allowed to exceed the maximum, which in this case is 24. So the range in my case, I don't know what the ideal range would be, but maybe, I don't know, if I choose 5, there's 5 entries here. If the range is 0 to 5, that equals 25 in total. So if they had 5 for all of them, they could have technically 25 hours. But our total must total 24. So they're not going to be able to choose 5 for all of them. You also make this 10, and they'll be forced to stay within the limit of 24. I'm going to choose 5 for my range. We could also have symbols here. This is added before our question or our answers on the right. So it could be like a $sign if it was a money question, or it could be a percentage sign if it's a percentage question. In my case, none of those make sense, so I'm just going to not have either of those. We can also change the type from text to a slider. So what changes is we can have text input here where they add a number, or we can have a slider where they can just slide their answer. And again, they can't exceed 24. You can set the start positions, set mine at 0. You can have decimals if you want. That makes the most sense for things like percentages or money. And you can show the total if you want to. In my case, I'll keep that on. And that is the constant sum question. It's a very interesting question type. Just going to quickly delete the ones we don't need again. And then click on Add New. We're almost done with the questions. We have a payment option. You can accept payments through SurveySparrow. This is proof of it right here. Connect a Stripe account. I have a tutorial in the card up above and the description down below that'll show you how to create a Stripe account, and you can add that to SurveySparrow and accept payments. So that's pretty awesome. Let's check what else we have. Consent and agreement. I agree to terms and conditions. Check this box. I'm going to turn that on. I'm going to keep that there. It's pretty self-explanatory. Phone number allows people to add a phone number. I'm going to quickly add a question. What is your phone number? I'm going to leave this one in so we can see how this one works. And that is the last question. After that comes the thank you page. You should always have a thank you page. Thank you for your time. And let's put the Macho Man back in here. Let's change this to Macho Man. Thanks you for your time. We can also add social sharing buttons if we want to. Why not? We can have the SurveySparrow branding on or off depending on what plan you're on. The free plan, you probably have to have that on. You can redirect to somewhere else. After they finish the survey, they can be sent to a custom page on your website, for example, using this redirect. You can also show the score here if you want. I'm going to keep that score one on so you can see the score at the end of the survey. Now that we've previewed all the questions, let's check out more options we have for designing before we go through the steps of integrating, sharing, and collecting results. Let's click on this little paintbrush. This is the design option or design options. And there's a lot of options that you have here. And let's just click on, let's say this one. Let's apply that design. So it keeps all your questions that were there, but it applies nice backgrounds and nice design to your pages. I think it looks pretty good. You go through the survey, this is how it looks. Looks very nice. You can also see how this looks in mobile or tablet, phones. You can also edit the theme. So if you wanted to change any of the colors or anything you want, you can edit that here. You can even add videos. So if we go to advanced background settings, we can add a video. It's currently in beta, but if we wanted to, for example, I have a video here, tropical beach video. If we upload this, this is the short looped video I got from a stock footage website. Let's wait for this to upload. And there's our video in the background. Nice tropical beach. Click on save and apply. Let's keep that video in the back. If we go to this global variables, this globe here, this is where we can set the variables we spoke about earlier. We have the ability to use the variables that we saw earlier, which are pulled from the contact details inside SurveySparrow. We can also add custom variables that allow you to pass information via the survey URL to make your surveys personalized, like I was saying about adding information from, say, MailChimp or any kind of other autoresponder, like I mentioned earlier, or you could even have custom built links. So for example, if your survey was about soccer shoes and you knew you were sending this to a certain group of people who like blue soccer shoes, you could have a custom built URL. Let's just add a custom variable right here. Let's just call it soccer shoe. Save variable. So now if we have this soccer shoe variable right up here, we could paste it here. That didn't work. Let's just click on the copy icon, paste it up here. Let's call this blue. So now you can take this URL, which is already hard-coded for blue, and we can have the survey say on specific questions, blue for the shoe color, because you know that group of people likes blue. So you have to know what they like already, or you have to know the answer if you use this option, or know what you're asking about. But if you use MailChimp or a different autoresponder to auto-populate this color, you can do that automatically. So you can send out to everybody in your list, as long as MailChimp knows what their answer is to this question, as long as it has that data in their database, they will then fill in the right information here. But now that we created this variable, we can actually go back to our questions, any question, and change it. So you like soccer shoes. Should call that cleats, shouldn't I? Soccer cleats. So you like soccer cleats. And right here, I'm going to add a variable. Call it soccer shoe. I probably should have used a better name for this, just for my own purposes, like shoe color, but you get the idea. So when we actually go and fill out the survey, if we have blue in the URL, we're going to see this question will say, so you like blue soccer cleats? Let's not make that a question, because this isn't really a question answer field. So do I. That is a lot of exclamation marks in that statement. That's okay. So now we have this variable here. We'll show you how that works in a minute. Come back to here. We have expressions. This is where we can add scores or a calculator of scores, like we mentioned earlier. So if we add an expression, let's just call this result, like they have for the example. And in here, we're going to choose our variables. So this is going to pull in the variables or the questions that have scores from our survey. So the first one is the 0 to 7 scale. So we're going to add that in. Plus, this is going to make a very simple equation. Plus, what is the best color for a wrestling ring? We add scores for that one. Plus, what is the best time to plant an oak tree? We added numbers for that one for the score. Save and validate. It's going to make sure this expression makes sense. And now we can put this result variable, result expression variable, somewhere to display it. So we go back out here, go to the thank you page, and this here I think will show our score. I'm not entirely sure because this is not the variable we created. So we'll see what this actually pulls in. But every other question type, we can display it also based on our scores. So if we calculate our scores, and then we go to logic, we go to if expression, the result, which is the variable we created, is equal to, not equal to, less than, or greater than whatever number we put in here, we will show certain questions or not show certain questions. Or we can also skip certain questions or not skip them based on the scores that people have generated, which allows you to make a highly customized survey based on what respondents are answering as they go, which is pretty cool. So we'll see if that actually shows up on the last page, because I'm not totally sure if it does. We can also change our languages. We can add a new language. We can translate to any one of these. It's not automatic. You have to do the translations yourself, but you can translate the whole survey into any one of those languages. The configuring options allow you to configure. They're pretty self-explanatory, so just read through the options and check the ones you like. The notifications are the emails that are sent out. We can have a thank you email. So when someone completes the survey, we can create a new template or use the default. Default shows right here. We can send an email when you just submit a response. We can send email based on partial responses. We can also print the survey if we want. And then once we have all those settings defined, we go to integrate. And this will help us collect data from the survey or responses from the survey. By default, everything's stored inside SurveySparrow, but you can connect any of these integrations that you see here, or even external webhooks, and have this data ported to somewhere else if you need to do that. On the share page, we actually share the survey. We have the option to send it via email, create a URL, share with social, Facebook or Twitter. We can embed it. We can embed it in an email. We can send it via text message, QR code, mobile SDK, or Slack. And every one of these, when you click on them, gives you certain options. If you send via email, gives you options to fill out the email here, and you can send it right from SurveySparrow. If you use social, click on any one of these, you can customize it with the image and everything, and then share it, and then people will be going to your survey. For the embed, you can customize how the embed looks, and you copy and paste the code right here and add it to your website or embed it to your mobile app or whatever it is that you're embedding in. So you choose which options you want and you go ahead and share them. And then step 4 is collecting the results. Currently there are none, but I'll show you results from a different survey we've done to see what the results look like. So that is surveys. That's the creation of a survey, customizing a survey, and sharing the survey. Now if we go back to home, there's a few other things we want to take a look at. Let's go to our settings. Here we have the options to define our account. So we can define our branding and our company name and logos and things like that. More branding definitions based on color types and logos and things. You can create sub-accounts for people on your team or for clients. You can have single sign-on. You can have IP restrictions. You can add new users. You can add teams. And then we have device management. Devices are where you have your offline surveys. For example, you can have an iPad at a conference. Maybe you have a table at a conference. You have an iPad there with a survey, and people can fill out the survey. And then when you get back to your hotel room or back to your house or wherever, you can sync that survey data into SurveySparrow. And there's a special offline survey. If you click on new survey on the main dashboard, there's an offline survey right here. And that's what you'd use to create the offline survey. And then you'd manage your devices. The devices the survey will be shown on using this section plus the SurveySparrow offline tool. So that's a pretty awesome feature right there. There's email settings. This is where your emails will be sent from. They can be sent from SurveySparrow. So by default, my surveys will be sent from wplearninglab@surveysparrow.net if they're sent from SurveySparrow. You can use a custom email address. You can put that in here. If you have the enterprise plan, you can use an SMTP server right there. The domain is where you input your domain name for your custom email address. Apps integrations. These are the integrations that you'd want to have on your surveys. Zapier is an integration here, but it is not an integration in the actual survey integrations tab. So if we go back to our survey, click on it to edit it, go to build, go to integrate, we see Zapier is not actually on here. Under webhooks, Zapier is not here either, but Zapier is an integration listed under the settings. So if you want to integrate with Zapier, you turn it on here under settings. Targets allows you to add apps like Twilio, so you can send text messages and voicemails. Language and messages, this allows you to translate languages on your SurveySparrow app. You can change the default language to any one of these 5 options you have right here. And then you can change the actual text of, say, the submit button or the link to edit responses. You can edit those right here to whatever language you want, or you can just change it in your current language, change it to something else. If you didn't want this to say edit responses, you could say please edit responses. And that would update wherever the edit responses would normally appear. Under billing, you of course have your billing information. And now let's actually take a look at the live survey. I'm going to go to actions on the right hand side. I'm going to go to share survey, take us to the share page. I'm going to create a URL. I'm going to choose the long URL, copied it. Let's open a new tab. And I'm going to add in here the piece that we created with the variables, our soccer shoe variable. In fact, I'll just copy this URL right here for this demo. So here we have our soccer shoe. I'm going to make this blue. Now we start our survey. There's the Macho Man. Click on Sure Thing. Let's get started. Scale of 1 to 7. How I really think WWB is. It's definitely a 6. It's got to be. What is the best color for a wrestling ring? Got to be red. Wow, that's great. So you like blue soccer cleats. So do I. If you recall, this is our variable. If we go back to this question, just for old time's sake, we see we're pulling in this variable right here. And that's coming from the URL, which is up here. So if we change this to red and then refresh the page, have to start the survey over or do that completely wrong. There we go, start the survey over using red. Now if we go in and answer these questions, you like red soccer cleats. So that's how we can personalize a survey with whatever information we want by having it up in the URL. Click on next. I like to have popcorn, hamburgers, and hot dogs at concession stands. To enter a phone number, requires a valid phone number. Just going to skip that one. What's the best time to plant an oak tree? Last year. Walking the dog. How do you spend your day? Well, I spend an hour walking the dog. I spend way more than 5 hours playing with the kids. I work for 3 hours, exercise for maybe 20 minutes, sleep for way more than 5 hours. So here we see a shortcoming in the way I develop these questions. I didn't think of this beforehand, but I play with the kids for more than 5 hours in a day right now, and I sleep for more than 5 hours. But I had the range for this question from 0 to 5 because I didn't want to be able to go past 24. So we can only up to 15 with our current setup right here. So I'm going to change that question really quick to have a 15 for the range. And then come back out here, refresh. I'm just going to fast forward. Now we have a range of 15. This makes a little bit more sense. So I just don't want this as a 1. Let's say I spend 9 hours a day playing with the kids, 3 hours a day working, 1 hour a day exercising, and I definitely don't get 10 hours of sleep, but that puts us at 24. 24 is the max, if you recall, because we only have 24 hours in the day. So I've got to up the kid time, have to put this down, then put this up, because you can't scale past the 24. I can't add more to my dog walking time because it's at the max of 24. So I can't move any of these up. I have to move other ones down before I can move others up. Let's move that down, move sleep up, and there we go. We're at our max of 24. Then we click next. And now we're done. Click on submit. And we have our thank you page. Macho Man thanks you for your time. And now our survey is complete. If we go back into SurveySparrow and we go to view results, we have all the answers as submitted in bar graph format. You can change the graph on the right hand side here, make it a pie chart if you want, make it a horizontal bar graph. Didn't enter my phone number because I skipped it. And there we have all of our answers. So that's the classic survey inside SurveySparrow. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you check out this tutorial right here, which is the chat survey. It's a great survey. It's very engaging. Check out that tutorial to show you how to create one inside SurveySparrow. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you click on subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss any future videos. My name is Bjorn Allpass in WP Learning Lab. Until next time, keep crushing it, and I will see you in the next video.